In the first part of this series on the coming Eurasian world, we made clear just how bankrupt the system of globalization really is, not only from a financial standpoint, but from a physical economic standpoint. The lack of physical infrastructure, basic economic infrastructure, means that currently billions of people around the world are totally the prey of the wild forces of nature, and many millions are on the verge of dying because of this. Now, you'd have to hate human beings quite a lot to call this system a success, or wish its furtherance. Now, we know that the environmentalists who say that man should not engage in changing the world, that he is responsible for destroying the planet, they would like to stop development in its tracks. But not only that, by them attempting to do so, they're sabotaging the economic process, the productive forces of labor decrease, and we see now that billions of people are unable to maintain their living standards. Now, how do we deal with this? We deal with this by reasserting what the role of physical infrastructure in society actually is. Taking it from the top, thinking, what do we need to maintain over a long period of time, several generations, the productive process as a whole worldwide to sustain 7 billion, 12 billion, 20 billion people to come and beyond. Now, what do things like the increase of energy flux density play as a role in this kind of process? These are the questions that need to be posed. And we know that simply building something isn't a criteria for infrastructure. Just think how many nations have been thrown into debt slavery by the IMF by way of building a dam or a motorway in the middle of nowhere, having no impact on the increase of productivity in that society, but merely incurring a huge monetary debt, which then disabled that nation from developing any further. And we should really think to ourselves, was there actually any point in history where mankind did not use his discoveries of principle, his creativity, to increase and to employ these in technology? Was this ever not done? And I think you'll see, if you look over the entire history of humanity, that was not the case. Now, we as an organization, the Schiller-Institut, look back on a history of 30 years of fighting for worldwide economic development. And it was always led under the motto of peace through development. And the idea that every human being has innate human rights, has inalienable rights, which nobody can take away from them, and that economic development is the most obvious one that secures somebody's material survival and allows them to use their creative faculties. We've shown what, on other videos on this website, what something like NWAPA, the North American Water and Power Alliance, where you take a continental approach to economic development, to infrastructure development, that you look at how does man change the biosphere, how does man influence and re-engineer the different flows of elements, and how does this increase our advantage, our ability to survive on this planet over the long term. And these kinds of projects are exactly the things that the oligarchy and the bankers who are trying to hold on to power of this collapsing system fear the most. But we know that if we get over this bankrupt financial system, reorganize the system, and reestablish sovereign credit of nations which are acting in the interests of their people, we can do this, and we can expand beyond the planet. We can, by going to the moon, industrializing the moon, colonizing Mars, we can expand the biosphere beyond this planet. And indeed, that is something that is a real mission for mankind, and would bring mankind together under a common aim. And in the future, when future generations look back on the current state of society as it is now, they'll see that the way we behave now, and things like monetary systems and backward things like empires, were childhood illnesses, and they always pass. And that is what this part in the series of The Coming Eurasian World is all about.